What's going on, everyone? My name is TheStarkz, and welcome. Today I've got a very interesting story that I guess hasn't really been announced or revealed until recently. I'd say roughly 2-3 days ago, depending on when I upload this. And it's about Naughty Dog, and I don't want to bring too much attention to the story, despite the lack of views that I've been getting recently. But I figured I wanted to share this video and my thoughts regarding it because I love Naughty Dog so much. I'm passionate about video game development. I'm passionate about video games. I'm passionate about developers and people and their story. And so I figured I'd shed some light, or not shed anything, but I figured I'd talk about this. So recently, an Australian developer from Naughty Dog announced his story on how he got hired at Naughty Dog. Now, I was confused by this because I thought it was just recently he got hired from Naughty Dog, but that's not the case. He was just sharing a story in which he cried during his interview for Naughty Dog, which essentially still got him his job. So, I guess I'll just I'll read. I'll just go through some of the highlights from his tweets. Now, the developer name is Boone Cooter. Now, I'm not the best with pronouncing names, as people have already made jokes about, especially in gaming at its core. But anyways, Boone is a developer. He's from Australia. He's a developer currently working as a lighting artist at Naughty Dog, and yeah, so that's a huge deal for Naughty Dog. And so he said a story he wants to share because he feels like he's an authentic person, and it's good to share stories like this. So he basically flew all the way from Australia, in which he was so excited for this job interview, and he was, he went into the office of Naughty Dog essentially, and he got some general questions from Bruce Straley, which is, as we know, is a very high regarded or highly spoke about person at Naughty Dog. He's a cool person himself. I've exchanged a few messages with him. He's a cool game developer or game director, I should say. And essentially, Bruce goes on to say, so were you lead artist on any of your last projects, and how many artists were there? And then Boone replies saying, well, just him. And then he goes on to ask him, why do you want to work at Naughty Dog? And then Boone begins to answer, well, you're the best, and so on and so forth, which is pretty typical. And then he stopped for a second, and he said, no, it's Bill, from The Last of Us. And he began to say that he told him that it was the first time he had seen a homosexual man portrayed as this gruff, masculine, tragically heroic type of character. And he went on to say that he wasn't a punchline to a joke, he wasn't overly stereotypical, and a lot of players didn't even pick up that he was homosexual himself, including myself, actually. I'm not gonna lie, I did not pick up on that until I played the game. I watched a walkthrough of The Last of Us, and I watched through not the entire thing, halfway, and I passed the Bill part, and then I played it myself, and then I just took a few moments, I'm like, wait a minute. And then, I then came to my own conclusions. And essentially, he went on to explain that he saw himself represented for the first time, a hairy, manly person who he respected and understood. And then that made him fall in love with everyone there, and telling them that made him cry. And he went on to say, who the hell cried at an interview? And and essentially he got hired to for Naughty Dog. And the moral of the story, he went on to say on his Twitter page, saying, don't underestimate authenticity, be raw, be vulnerable, be real, and that's where your uniqueness shines. Now, the reason why I love that so much is because it shows the kind of people that Naughty Dog hires for their company. And maybe not entirely, they've probably hired a person because they're intelligent or whatever at what they do, but this was a man who who nowadays it's such a controversial thing, being gay and all this stuff. And he didn't, instead of going the typical route of being like, I love you guys, you guys are awesome, he stopped for a moment and realized, wait a minute, I'd rather be authentic. I'd rather be raw. I'd rather put myself in such a weak and vulnerable, or not weak, but vulnerable state, so I can shine more. It's better to be or showcase yourself than to just do what everyone else does and share what everyone else does. And that's the moral of the story, and that's why I respect this story so much, and that's the reason why I decided to talk about it today, because it's just amazing, you know, like, although it was like an emotional interview or an emotional, you know, state that he was at, it essentially got him a job at one of the best known, highly known game developers to date. And that's what I like, you know, that's what everyone likes Naughty Dog for. Or not everyone, I'm speaking for myself here, but that's what I truly like Naughty Dog for. And this just shows. Now, again, I mentioned how this was not recent. He did not get hired. I think he got hired roughly a year, maybe almost 2 years ago. Don't quote me on that. You know, I was gonna make the video a couple days ago about this story, and I figured I'd do more research on it, and it turns out that he did have the chance to work on Uncharted 4's epilogue and a few of the features or lighting, I guess, in Uncharted 4. So I'm assuming he is also working for The Last of Us Part 2. Whether that's, you know, because they're developing that right now. So yeah, this is just a cool story that I figured I'd share with you guys, you know. And of course, if you're new to the channel, subscribe. That'll be amazing. And of course, if you'd like to support me beyond that, you can support me on Patreon, as I've got some pretty cool features on there. And tell me what you guys think about this story. You know, I'll leave the article in which I've read off of this via the description if you'd like to read it yourself. And if you haven't already, check out my The Lost Legacy review, as I worked very hard on that as well. And with that all being said, I'll see you guys in the next video, and thank you a lot for watching. Peace.